It would be helpful if you knew these crochet stitches already before starting this bag. You can just slow it down and watch it as I go, but it's obviously helpful if you already know those basic crochet stitches. The yarn for this video was supplied to me by Ben Franklin in Bonney Lake, Washington. And if you're unable to find this yarn, I will put some links in the description box for some good alternatives. Also, the supply list for this was on the previous page. And I will also put links in the description box for the purse bottom, the O-rings, and also a D-ring option, the purse clasp that I used, and the pliers that I used for the purse clasp, and also where I get my custom tags for my bags. So look in the description box below, and links for all of that can be found there, as well as the purse strap that I used. I am going to line this purse. I won't be showing that in this video because I have a video that is only how to line a crochet purse, and so I will put that link in the description box as well. We're going to start by having a little bit of a tail that we're going to leave and then cast on to the bottom. You can start in any hole, but I start all of my purses in the hole where my increase stitches are going to start for the foundation row. But before that, we will put a slip stitch in every hole. When you get to the last hole, when you insert your hook, you're going to drop your working yarn and grab that tail. And we're going to use that tail to complete the final slip stitch and pull it all the way through. Make sure all of your loop stitches are similar right there, so don't have one too tight or too loose. And then come in that first stitch, pull the tail through, and then come to the last hole. Put your yarn right in between those loops and grab that tail and pull the tail all the way through. And then make sure all of your loops are lined up the same size. Now we're going to go back to using the working yarn. So drop the tail for now. We will use the tail one more time when we complete our foundation round. So to start the foundation round, I'm going right back into that stitch that I started the slip stitch with. And we're going to do 2 single crochets in that stitch. So that is an increase stitch. Single crochets for this entire foundation round, but they're going to be singles and increases, which is just 2 single crochets. So that's going to have an increase, and then you're going to put 12 more increase stitches. So a total of 13 on this side for the curve, and then there's going to be 13 increases on the opposite side of the curve. And then on the straight edge sides, we will be alternating between a single crochet in one hole and increase in the next hole. So go ahead and complete your 13 increase stitches. So that's 13 increase stitches. There will be 13 on the other side, but in between, we're going to do single crochet, increase, single crochet, increase. And if you have a different size bottom that I'm using, because they come in many different sizes, you're going to have the same type of concept where you're going to have increase stitches in your curve, and then you're alternating the single crochet and increase on the straight edges. But if yours is a different size, then your number of increases on the curves will be different, as well as the number on the sides will be different depending on the size bag bottom that you're using. But this concept works for any size. And now I will begin my increase stitches again. And then we'll finish the same as the other side. And the last hole is a single crochet. And before doing the final yarn over and pull through, drop the working yarn, take your tail, yarn over that tail, and bring it all the way through, using that tail to complete the round. Go over to the first loop, just like we did with the slip stitch round, and use the tail to complete that round. Go through both the back bump loop and the regular loop. Pull that tail all the way through. Fix all of your loops and stitches and make sure they all look the same size. And now we're done using the tail. And I'm just going to crochet the tail in as I crochet round 1. And now we're going to begin round 1, and it's going to be a single crochet in the back loop only, all the way around, but we're also going to go through that back bump. So go through the back loop, and then the back bump is that loop right behind the back loop. So go through both of those. Grab your working yarn and do a single crochet. The reason I go through the back bump is it helps pull the walls of the purse up. And then just work the tail in as you go around. And complete that in every stitch for round 1. When you get to the end of round 1, after you complete that last single crochet, use the loop after pulling it up to close your round. And then when you pull your working yarn back through, chain 1, and that will be the first single crochet in round 2. And round 2 is a single crochet in every stitch. And we will now be using the front and back loops. And at the end of round 2, close that round the same way you did round 1. And when you do your chain 1, again, that's the first single crochet in round 3. And round 3 is the same as round 2. We're just going to put a single crochet in every stitch. And now at the end of round 3, we're going to close again the same way. And then round 4 is where we're going to start the smocking pattern. So you again did a chain 1, and that chain 1 is your single crochet, which is your first stitch. And then the next stitch is going to be a spike stitch. And if you've not done a spike stitch, you do the same stitch that you're doing now, which is a single crochet. You're just going to drop down 2 rows below. And spike stitches can go down as many rows as you want them. In this case, we're going to go down 2. So just complete your single crochet that way. And sometimes I get a little picky about my stitch, and you'll notice that I'm taking my hook out and repositioning the yarn. I just do that because I like the yarn to lay flat without any kind of a twist in it. But it's up to you. You don't have to do that. This is just me being really picky, wanting all of my spike stitch threads to lay flat, but it's not necessary. And be sure when you're doing your spike stitches that when you look across that row where your spike stitch is inserted into, make sure you're skipping a stitch in between, since you'd have that single crochet in between each spike stitch. You don't want to be inserting 2 rows down at the next one. So you can see there that there are skipped stitches in between all the spike stitches for where the single crochet stitches are. Also, I forgot to mention, when you're doing your spike stitches, after you insert into the space, make sure that you're pulling up that loop so it's level with your row, so that you're not pulling the yarn down. And we're going to close our round the same way. Make sure the last stitch in your round is a spike stitch. And then use your loop to close the round just as you did before. However, this time we're not going to insert our hook where we did before. We're going to back up 1 stitch. And this helps to keep all of our stitches lined up correctly. And then do your yarn over and pull through, and chain 1 will be your first single crochet. Because we started this round by backing up a stitch, we have a stitch that was skipped, but that stitch will have a front post single crochet, so we won't insert into the actual stitch. This won't be a normal front post stitch. Instead of putting your hook behind the whole stitch like a normal front post, you will insert your hook behind the second leg of the last spike stitch in the previous round and the first leg of the first spike stitch in the previous round. By making a single crochet post stitch using 2 different spike stitches, it gives the diamond shape that the smock stitch has. Round 5 is just a repeat of single crochet and front post single crochet using the spike stitch legs. The last stitch in this round will be a front post single crochet using those legs. So just continue this round by repeating those 2 stitches until you get to the end. And when you get to the end, you should have those legs from 2 different spike stitches to complete your last front post single crochet. And now for round 6, we don't need to back up. We're going to go right back into the same stitch instead of backing up. You only back up 1 stitch when you're doing the front post leg stitches. So that chain 1 is your first single crochet. And this round is like before, where we just repeat the pattern of single crochet and spike stitches for the entire round. So when you do your spike stitch, you want to make sure that you're inserting your hook right in the top part of that triangle. And by doing this, when you come back and do round 7 and you're pulling those legs to do your front post stitch, it's going to pull it apart at the top of the triangle so it keeps all of those diamond shapes. So just continue that pattern for this entire round. And now for round 7, we will need to back up and start our single crochet stitch there. And then the next stitch is a front post single crochet using the legs. And we're just going to repeat that pattern. You're going to repeat round 6 and 7 until you get the body of your purse the height that you want. We are going to continue this pattern for the flap, but because the flap is done in rows instead of rounds, it's done a little bit different. And we're also going to be using decreases to make the shape of the flap. So that will be different, but go ahead and keep repeating rounds 6 and 7 until you get the height that you want. I did add a custom tag to this, and if you want a demonstration on how to add a custom tag, I will put a link in the description box where you can find that. But at this point, I have completed the first skein of yarn and I need to go into my second skein of yarn. So I just wanted to demonstrate how I go into the next one without tying it to make a knot. I feel like it's best to start on a single crochet stitch. So I just completed a regular single crochet stitch. And then I'm going to insert my hook into the 2 loops. And then grab the new strand of yarn. A little bit of a tail so you have something to weave in so it doesn't come undone, and then just pull it through your loops, and then take the yarn that you're ending with and pull it all the way through, and it'll be locked in. And then you can just continue on with your stitches and weave in the tail from the new yarn and the tail from the yarn that you ran out of while you're doing your stitches. At this point, I'm going to stop with the smocking stitch and I'm going to add my O-rings. And when I move to the section where the O-rings go or D-rings, I like to do single crochet rows so that it has a nice firm tight stitch to hold those rings in place so they don't get pulled from the strap of the purse and the weight of the purse. So you need to mark where your rings are going to go into your stitches. So you want them to be on both edges. And I am going to use a smaller size O-ring, so I only need 3 stitches for this. Some of the D-rings are big enough that you can do 4 stitches across. And I do have a video that's just adding D-rings, so I will link that in the description box as well. So I'm just going to mark, this is the first stitch that I will come to in doing this next row of single crochets, and then as I go around, I'm going to mark where the next stitch is going to be. And this next row is going to be just single crochet stitches in every stitch. After you get your second O-ring or D-ring in, hold your bag up and just close it together at the top and make sure that those rings are both in the correct place. Sometimes you may have to adjust it over a stitch or two to make sure that they're both right in the corner. And now when we begin this next row, we're going to do a waistcoat style single crochet. So we're going to insert our hook into that V space. And when you push your hook through there, you're going to kind of feel that little back bump. You want your hook to go towards the left side of that bump. That's what will give it that flat look. And this will be the first single crochet in this row. And you will do 2 rounds of single crochet waistcoat style. You can do all of these rows with just a regular single crochet, but you're not going to get that nice tight flat look at the top of your bag. It's going to be more pulled and there will be spaces and gaps. So by using the waistcoat style is what creates that nice tight knitted like flat surface. So go ahead and do this row or this round of single crochet waistcoat and then do one more round. So you will have a total of 3 rounds of single crochets after the smock stitch pattern has ended, one of them being regular single crochet and the other 2 being waistcoat style. After you've completed your rounds of single crochet and you join your rounds, you do not need to go into the V space like you're doing a waistcoat style because we're done doing the waistcoat style single crochets. Now we're just going to put the hook into the regular loops, bring it through, but don't do a chain 1. We're going to do a slip stitch in every stitch around the top of the bag. And this will complete the body of the bag. When you get to the last stitch, cut your yarn and pull the yarn all the way through. And then we're going to close this slip stitch row the same way we did the slip stitch that we did around the bottom of the purse with the holes. And we're going to weave in the tail from that when we do the first row for our flap. Now we're going to mark where the flap is going to go. And you want it to be on the inside of your O-rings or D-rings so that when it comes over the purse opening, it has room to clear the side area. You do want to have an even number, and I'm going to do 40 stitches across for mine. So you can pick any of the stitches that are there close to the edge, as long as you don't get too close to your O-ring or D-ring. You want it to be at least a stitch or two away from that. And to start the flap, we're going to go into the back loop and into the back bump loop. Now we're not going through any loops from the slip stitch. So your slip stitch loops are on the front. We're using the ones on the top. And then cast on in that first stitch marker stitch. We're going to work this tail in when we get to it. But to start with, we'll have a tail from our new strand of yarn. So have a little bit of a tail. You don't need too long, just enough so that it doesn't come unraveled and it's worked in nice and tight. And then chain 2. And then go into that back loop and the back bump and put a single crochet in every stitch all the way to your next stitch marker, working in that tail as you go. The reason I did chain 2 in the beginning is because the first chain acts as that first single crochet in that stitch, and then the second chain is to be used as the turning chain that you would normally have if you were doing a foundation row. Once you get over to where you have that other tail that is left over from the body of the purse, you're going to have 2 tails that you're working in at the same time. And I usually have the tail from the purse body go all the way to the end of this first single crochet row for the flap, just so that I know that that is weaved in nicely and won't come unraveled. And that is the end of row 1. And I'm going to cut that tail that's left over from the purse body. And for row 2, chain 1, turn, and put a single crochet in every stitch. And that's the end of row 2. Make sure that when you get to the end of row 2, you're getting that last stitch there. That's where we did the chain 2 originally. And for row 3, we're going to chain 1, turn, and again put single crochets in all stitches. This is going to be the last single crochet row. And this is the end of row 3. And now, starting in row 4, we're going to go back and start working that smock pattern. So chain 1, turn, put a single crochet in the first stitch, and a spike stitch in the next stitch. And then we're going to just alternate that, just like we did in the purse body when we did our stitches. We did a single crochet, spike stitch. Just keep repeating that pattern all the way to the end, and the last stitch is going to be a spike stitch. And your spike stitches go in 2 rows below. And at the end of row 4, last stitch is a spike stitch. And that's the end of row 4. So for row 5, we're going to chain 1, turn, and then we're going to do a row of the rotating the single crochet and the front post using the legs, just like we did before. So your first stitch is going to be a single crochet, and then a front post using those legs, the last leg from one and the first leg from the other, and repeat the pattern of single crochet, front post single crochet using the legs. And the only thing that will be different is the last stitch in the row is only going to use one leg. So after you do your last single crochet, take your hook and put it under one leg and then through that last stitch. And then yarn over and complete your single crochet that way. And that is the end of row 5. For row 6, chain 1 and turn. And row 6 and 7 are the last 2 rows, and those are the 2 rows that we're going to continue to repeat. So pay attention to row 6 because you will be repeating this one and 7 for the rest of your flap. So you do your chain 1 and turn, and then single crochet in 2 stitches. So the first stitch is a single crochet, and the second stitch is a single crochet. And then you go into your repeating pattern with your spike stitch and single crochet. Make sure that your spike stitch is going in between the other 2 spike stitches. And then look on the other side of your flap. You want your hook to go right in between that V upside down triangle space. If you don't have your hook going through that V, then your pattern is not going to look correct. And then just do a single crochet and keep repeating the single crochet spike until you get to the end. And the last stitch is going to be a single crochet. You can see I have 2 stitches left here. So I'm going to do my spike stitch, and then the last stitch will be a single crochet. And that is the end of row 6. For row 7, chain 1, turn. And we're going to begin this row with a decrease. So now we're going to put a decrease in every other row. So we're going to do row 6 and row 7 for the rest of this, and every row 7 will have a decrease. So insert your hook, yarn over, pull through, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, go through all 3 loops. That is a single crochet decrease. And then do your front post with the legs, single crochet, and then continue to repeat the front post with the legs and single crochet stitches. And then at the end, again, we're going to do the front post only using one leg, but we're going to work in a decrease at the same time. And now we're at the end of row 7. So after you do your single crochet where there's only one leg left, but you have 2 stitches, we're going to do our decrease. So go under the leg, through that first stitch, yarn over, pull through, and then insert into the next, yarn over, pull through, go through all 3. And that makes it another single crochet decrease, but we're working that leg in at the same time. And that's the end of row 7. For the rest of this flap, just keep repeating row 6 and row 7 until your flap is the size that you want it to be. You will continue to angle in as you do your decrease rows. So now I'm back to doing row 6, where I do a single crochet in 2 and then start the spike stitch single crochet pattern. And now I'm back doing row 7, where I do the decrease to start with, and then continue with my front post with the legs pattern, alternating with that and single crochets. And remember to do the 1 leg single crochet decrease at the end of that row. My flap is big enough that I have 11 diamonds counting diagonally. There are 18 in the purse body. The only reason this matters is because if you're wanting to make the same size as me and you're using the same yarn that I have, I only have a little bit of yarn left. So you're not going to have enough yarn from those 2 skeins to make the bag much larger. So now we need a row of stitches that are flatter so that when we put the clasp on, the screws that are on the back will fit through, because the current pattern we have is pretty bulky and the screws will not fit all the way through that thickness. So I'm going to chain 1, turn, and I'm going to do a row of single crochet, but I'm going to put a single crochet decrease at the beginning and the end. And the last row is going to be a row of slip stitches, But because our clasp requires there to be a hole in this row, we need to do 4 skip stitches in the middle. And that way we have a string essentially that will go around that hole. Chain 1, turn, and put a slip stitch in 8 stitches. And then chain 8, and then skip 4, and then slip stitch in the last 8 stitches. And then cut your yarn, pull it through, put a little knot, then take your clasp, take the screws off the back, and you want to wrap that chain 8 right around that opening. And then also take one of the loops from the stitches and put it around the hole where the screws are going to go to help secure it to the purse. And then screw it back in. Make sure all your yarn is tucked in. And then now we need to put the closure for the clasp in. But before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and weave in my tail. And I do like to weave my tail in all the way down the flap and into the inside because I'm going to line the purse, and I just like to have the end of the tail on the inside of my lining so that it won't come unraveled, because sometimes if the end is sticking out of the flap, it can get pulled and unravel. So just go all the way down onto the inside of the purse. Then take the closure of your clasp, open it up with the pliers. Make sure it's turned the right way so that it goes through the hole all the way so you can close it. And then find the position on your purse. Now, when your purse is open and full of stuff, it's going to be bulkier, so you're not going to be able to pull that flap over as far as you can when it's flat. So take that into consideration and just pull it up just a little bit. And then unlock it. And then go behind, put your little plate on there. And then take the pliers and pull the prongs inward. It's a little bit hard to do this on camera because it's hard to be able to get the camera view on the inside because of the way I have to hold it. But just take the pliers, and if you don't have any of the pliers, you can use anything that's hard to just push those prongs down. And that's it. You're all done. Just add your strap. And then obviously lining it is optional. I am going to line this bag. I'm not going to show it, but I will put a link in the description box and here in the upper corner on where you can find a video for lining a crochet bag.